How are we all doing today? Are we full? Because that's a very big key to the whole thing. This is not a way of eating to suffer through. This is a way of eating to actually enjoy and be comfortable for a multitude of reasons. So to start off, I'm 38 years old. Dealt with weight issues my whole life. Never was athletic, was terrible at all sports, couldn't run, couldn't throw or catch, and so naturally I stopped doing them. And then as I got older, weight creeped up. My very heaviest was 315. As I'm standing today, I'm about 214, 215, and thank you, appreciate it. Thank you. The very big difference from when I was that weight as a teenager is there's actually muscle mass hiding under all this, because the way of eating unlocked my body in a way that really until then I had no idea was even possible, again because I was bad at all these things. And it started roughly about 3.5 years ago. I had to sit in a chair to tie my shoes. I couldn't make it up these flights of stairs right here, probably only about halfway without having to go a little bit slower, and so on. I love live music. I couldn't dance anymore at shows. That was probably the most crushing, was realizing I didn't have the energy for that anymore. And it was time. So I thankfully found a good exercise routine. I train at a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school in Chicago in the West Town. It's called Brazil 021, if anyone's ever interested in trying something a little bit crazy, but at the same time highly enriching and good for thinkers and whatnot. They let me in at 305 pounds, but after the classes, I was dead. And again, it's very hard, very rigorous exercise, but afterward, I was sore everywhere. I could barely move. I was doing what my friends like to call dad sounds when I'm getting up. No offense to the dads here, but when you go, that kind of thing. About a year after starting at the school, I was really struggling with my weight loss. I had gotten down to about 290. And for about the next 6 months, 6 months before I met Dr. Naomi Perella, nothing was happening. I was doing all the things that people told me to do. My breakfasts were beans, quinoa, and eggs, or I would make my own parfait with good quality yogurt, the lowest sugar granola I could find, and fresh fruit, and turkey sandwiches on the healthiest wheat I could find for lunch. But I did eliminate carbs for dinner, and that, right? Oh yeah, I remember you. So yes, that's me at my heaviest. That's just about winter 2015, and so right about when I was already training at the school, just starting to, kind of get things figured out a little bit. So again, 6 months, going back and forth between 280 and 290, no progress, really frustrated, feeling like I'm eating the way people told me to. Even talked to a couple of dietitians, right? And that's me acting like a flag at the Pride Parade the last Sunday. It's a little kind of hard to tell, but yeah, in any case, you get the gist. So I work at Rush in philanthropy communications, and I saw a release about Dr. Perella's program and how it was very custom, and she would talk to you, and she would figure out not just the actual action reasons, but also the psychological reasons and the stress reasons, and all of them, not just one particular thing, because as we all know, it's really not that simple, is it? Raise your hand if anybody said to you, why don't you just lose weight? Right? Yeah? Or have you tried exercise? Have you tried eating less? Yeah, thank you. Great. And so as I'm sure you've all experienced, everybody is a ridiculous expert. So I figured it was time to go to an actual expert. And I explained to her how I'd been eating, and she said, you know what? Cut out the starches, cut out the sugars. Let's start there. Simple as that. I was familiar with the way of eating, but I was skeptical, just because I just was. I'm kind of skeptical by nature. I was probably the last person to start watching Game of Thrones, for example. And sure enough, 6 weeks into the way of eating, and it kept it real simple. Scrambled eggs, a little bit of meat, and vegetables for breakfast. Usually, kind of a breadless sandwich for lunch, and then I was already doing a protein of some kind with vegetables for dinner. So I had a little bit of a head start to a point. But then 6 weeks into this, something truly incredible happened. Suddenly, my body, it was like a switch flipped. My body woke up, and I could do things that I never ever was able to do before, and with ease. And I want to give a little bit of a caveat, which is, again, all your mileages will vary, but this is what happened to me, and it was absolutely shocking. I was on a family trip. There's a pool there. I swam 20 laps and I was dead. First day. Second day, go in, swim another 20 laps. I was fine. So I did 10 more. The next day, I kept adding and adding and adding. And my mom's sitting there looking like, when are you going to, are you going to just spend the rest of the time in the pool? I come back home. I start training at the school again. And suddenly, I'm not so dead after the fundamentals classes. Suddenly, my balance is improving. My strength is improving, my techniques, all of it. People are noticing. The people who've suffered with me through my heaviest days are seeing it. They're seeing this happen. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you get stripes in between the belts. And there's no test. Your professor, which is what we call the black belts, they simply decide on the day that, yep, you've earned it. And sure enough, I earned my next 2 stripes and was able to start taking the advanced classes. And that's when things really, really switched too. So in that first year, again, big fast forward, I lost 70 pounds. Put on a decent amount of muscle mass as well in the midst of that. So, and one of the great things about Perella's program, she tracks all those percentages. You know exactly what you're losing. Because let's be real, you're going to have a day sometimes where you've gone up like 5 pounds out of nowhere, right? Is that really fat? No, it's probably water weight. You might have had just too much salt the day before or something like that. And probably one of the single greatest moments in my life happened almost a year to the day after starting the way of eating and going to Perella and sticking to her program, and that's that I was promoted to blue belt. And for a kid who was always picked last in gym, couldn't, never did any team sports, avoid all of it like the plague, at age 37 to finally be at a place where not only was I able to progress, but also in a very challenging martial art. If you look up Navy SEAL Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you're going to see a Navy SEAL on YouTube saying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the hardest thing he's ever done in his life. But I couldn't just do it with the exercise alone. I needed to give my body the right fuel. And it turns out that this way of eating was exactly it. And all throughout, it's not something I've suffered through. Again, that's so important. I enjoy my regular regimen. I make a big pan of scrambled eggs, again, with a little bit of meat and some vegetables. I dole that out for the week. That's my breakfast almost every single day. I've been doing that for almost 2 years straight, and I'm not sick of it. Sometimes I'll change it up with the seasoning or what exactly I include in it. But for a restrictive diet, there are so many things that you can eat. It really is remarkable. And if you really go down the internet rabbit hole and you start looking up some of these bakers, they're making bread that looks like bread, and it's maybe 1 net carb a slice, if that. So this is a great example of a way of eating where you'll get out of it what you put in. And try to embrace all the various things that actually make it a hell of a lot easier than a whole lot of other ones, and you just might reap the rewards too. Thank you very much.